The gunshot echoed across the prairie as Lily Winters clung to the wheel of the broken-down wagon, her knuckles white with fear while the distant dust cloud of her departing wagon train disappeared over the horizon. Nebraska Territory, 1855, was no place for a woman alone, and as the reality of abandonment sank in, tears streamed down her face. Her father's death 2 days prior had made her an inconvenience to the wagon master who wouldn't delay their westward journey any longer. Just when despair threatened to overwhelm her, she spotted a lone rider coming from the direction of the vanished caravan, his silhouette growing larger against the setting sun. Wade Hayes had been traveling with the wagon train as hired protection, a job he'd taken after years of drifting from one cattle drive to another. The moment he discovered Lily had been left behind, something in his normally hardened heart had shifted. He couldn't explain it, but he knew turning back was the only choice he could live with. "Miss Winters," he called out as he approached, his deep voice carrying across the open plains. "I've come back for you." Lily stood straighter, wiping the tears from her cheeks with the back of her hand. "Mr. Hayes, why would you return when everyone else was content to leave me to die?" Wade dismounted, his boots hitting the ground with a thud. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes the color of a summer sky and a face weathered by years under the western sun. "No decent man would leave a woman alone out here." He glanced at the broken wagon wheel, "and it appears I arrived just in time." "The wheel split when we hit that gully," Lily explained, gesturing to the damaged wood. "Father was too ill to fix it, and then—" Her voice trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. Wade nodded solemnly. "I'm sorry about your father, Miss Winters. I didn't know him well, but he seemed a good man." "He was," she whispered, looking toward the fresh grave she'd dug herself, marked with a simple wooden cross. "He dreamed of Oregon, said we would build a new life there." Wade removed his hat, holding it respectfully. "The wagon master had no right to abandon you. When I found out they'd left you behind, I couldn't ride another mile with them." Lily studied him, trying to understand his motives. Wade Hayes had barely spoken 2 words to her during their weeks of travel, always keeping to himself, riding the perimeter of the wagon train, his rifle at the ready. "I can manage on my own, Mr. Hayes," she said, though they both knew it was a lie. Wade replaced his hat. "No doubt you're capable, Miss Winters, but these plains are unforgiving. I've seen what happens to folks who try to cross them alone." He paused, considering his words carefully. "I can help fix your wagon, get you moving again, and escort you to the nearest settlement. From there, you can decide your next steps." Lily hesitated. At 22, she'd been raised to be cautious around men, especially those she barely knew, but death awaited her if she remained alone on the prairie. "Very well, Mr. Hayes, I accept your help." Wade nodded, already surveying the damaged wheel. "We'll need to make camp for tonight. I'll start on repairs at first light." As dusk settled across the prairie, Wade built a fire while Lily prepared a modest meal from her dwindling supplies. They sat in silence as the stars emerged overhead, countless and brilliant in the clear night sky. "Why were you traveling west?" Wade finally asked, breaking the silence. Lily stared into the flames. "Father was a schoolteacher back in Pennsylvania. After Mother died of typhoid last winter, he couldn't bear to stay. Said Oregon needed educated men and that we could start fresh there." She looked up at him. "And you, Mr. Hayes, what draws you westward?" Wade poked at the fire with a stick. "Nothing in particular. Been drifting since the Mexican War ended. Took up with cattle drives, then started hiring out my gun to wagon trains heading west." "You fought in the war," he nodded. "Too young, really, lied about my age, wasn't much older than a boy when I saw things no man should see." He fell silent, and Lily didn't press him further. Morning came with a symphony of birdsong. Wade was already working on the wheel when Lily emerged from the wagon where she'd slept. She watched him for a moment, struck by his methodical efficiency and the strength in his hands as he worked. "I've salvaged what I can," he explained as she approached. "But we'll need to find a settlement with a blacksmith to do proper repairs. The wheel will hold for now, but not for a long journey." "How far to the nearest town?" she asked, offering him a cup of coffee she'd prepared. Wade accepted it with a nod of thanks. "Fort Kearney is about 2 days' ride east. It's our best option. East, but Oregon is west, yes. But you can't catch up to your wagon train with a damaged wheel, and there's nothing but open territory for weeks of travel ahead." He met her eyes directly. Fort Kearney first, then we can decide what comes next. Lily wanted to argue but knew he was right. Very well, Mr. Hayes. They set out by mid-morning, Wade riding alongside the wagon as Lily handled the reins of her 2 oxen. The repaired wheel held, though it made a rhythmic creaking sound that set Lily's teeth on edge. You handle those oxen well, Wade observed after they'd been traveling for several hours. Father insisted I learn everything about wagon travel before we left Pennsylvania, she replied. Said a woman should never be dependent on a man for survival. She gave him a sidelong glance. Though I suppose I'm dependent on you now. A hint of a smile touched Wade's lips. Only temporarily, Miss Winters. As the day wore on, Wade remained vigilant, his eyes constantly scanning the horizon. When Lily asked what he was looking for, his answer was blunt. Indians, mostly. This is Pawnee Territory. They're generally peaceful with whites passing through, but there are renegade bands, and there are other dangers: outlaws, wolves, buffalo stampedes. You're not exactly comforting, Mr. Hayes, Lily said dryly. This time his smile was fuller. Better to know the dangers than be surprised by them. They made camp that evening by a small creek. As Lily prepared their evening meal, Wade disappeared into the growing darkness, returning 30 minutes later with a rabbit he'd shot. Fresh meat will do us good, he said, already working to prepare it for cooking. Lily watched his skilled hands. You're very self-sufficient, Mr. Hayes. Out here you either learn to be or you don't survive long, he glanced up at her. You're doing well yourself, Miss Winters. Many women from back east wouldn't handle this situation with such composure. She felt an unexpected warmth at his compliment. Necessity is a powerful teacher. That night, as they sat by the fire after their meal, Lily found herself studying Wade's profile. In the firelight, the hardness of his features softened, and she could see glimpses of the young man he must have been before the war changed him. Tell me about your home, Mr. Hayes, she said. Before the war, Wade was quiet for so long that Lily thought he might not answer. Tennessee, he finally said. Hill country. My father had a small farm, nothing grand, but it was good land. Do you ever think of going back? Wade shook his head. Nothing to go back to. Farm was destroyed during the war. Parents died of fever while I was away fighting. My younger brother went to California in '49 during the gold rush. Haven't heard from him since. I'm sorry, Lily said softly. Wade shrugged. It was a long time ago. Is that why you drift? Because there's nowhere to call home. His blue eyes met hers across the fire. Maybe, or maybe I just haven't found a reason to stop yet. The next day brought clouds and the threat of rain. The prairie stretched endlessly around them, the tall grasses swaying in the strengthening wind. By midday, thunder rumbled in the distance. We need to find shelter, Wade called over the wind. Storm's coming in fast. Lily nodded, anxiety building in her chest. They were exposed on the open prairie with nowhere to hide from the impending storm. There, Wade pointed to a stand of trees in the distance. Head for those cottonwoods. They reached the trees just as the first heavy drops began to fall. Wade helped Lily secure the oxen, then worked quickly to create a makeshift shelter using the wagon cover and some branches. Get inside, he instructed, helping her into the small space as rain began to pour in earnest. The shelter was cramped, forcing them to sit close together. Outside, lightning flashed and thunder crashed overhead. One of the oxen lowed nervously. Will they be all right? Lily asked, concerned for the animals. They'll be fine. They're used to weather. Wade was acutely aware of her closeness, the scent of her hair somehow still flowery despite days on the trail. A particularly loud crack of thunder made Lily jump, and without thinking, Wade put his arm around her shoulders. She stiffened momentarily, then relaxed against him. I've always hated storms, she admitted, ever since I was a child. They pass, Wade said simply. Everything does eventually. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the rain pounding against their shelter. Lily was conscious of the steady rise and fall of Wade's chest, the warmth of his body next to hers. Mr. Hayes, she began hesitantly, why did you really come back for me? The truth, please. Wade was silent for a long moment. When I found out they'd left you, something just didn't sit right. I've seen too many people die out here, couldn't bear the thought of it happening to you. You barely knew me, didn't need to. His voice was low, almost lost in the sound of the rain. Some things you just know are wrong. Lily turned slightly to look at him, their faces now inches apart. "Thank you," she whispered. Something shifted between them in that moment, a recognition of connection that neither had expected to find. Wade cleared his throat and looked away, suddenly uncomfortable with their proximity. "Storm's letting up," he observed, though the rain continued to fall steadily. The storm passed eventually, leaving behind a freshly washed prairie and mud that made travel slow. They pressed on toward Fort Kearney, both of them aware that something had changed during those hours sheltered together. By late afternoon the next day, they spotted the fort in the distance. The American flag flew above the wooden palisade, a welcome sight after days on the open prairie. "We'll find a blacksmith there," Wade said as they approached. "Get your wagon properly repaired." Lily nodded, suddenly uncertain about what would happen once they reached civilization. Would Wade leave her there? The thought brought an unexpected pang of distress. Fort Kearney was bustling with activity: soldiers, traders, and emigrants preparing for their westward journeys. Wade helped Lily secure lodging at the fort's small inn while he took the wagon to the blacksmith. "The wheel needs to be completely rebuilt," Wade informed her when he returned. "It'll take at least 3 days." 3 days, Lily repeated, not entirely disappointed by the delay. "What will you do, Mr. Hayes?" Wade hesitated. "Thought I'd stay until your wagon is repaired. Make sure you're situated before I move on." Relief washed over her. "I would appreciate that." Their days at Fort Kearney fell into an easy rhythm. Wade would check on the wagon repairs in the mornings while Lily replenished their supplies and washed their clothes in the fort's laundry. In the afternoons, they would walk together around the fort, Wade pointing out the different types of people they encountered: mountain men with their buckskins and long beards, Army officers in their blue uniforms, Pawnee scouts who worked with the military. On their third evening at the fort, they sat outside the inn watching the sunset. Wade had been unusually quiet all day. "Blacksmith says the wagon will be ready tomorrow," he finally said. "That's good news," Lily replied, though her heart sank at the implication. "You'll need to decide what you want to do next," Wade continued. "You could try to catch up with your wagon train, though they're far ahead by now, or you could wait for the next train heading west." "And what will you do?" Lily asked, turning to face him. Wade looked down at his hands. "I'm not sure. I've heard there's work at the ranches starting up in Colorado Territory." Lily felt a lump forming in her throat. "I see." They sat in silence as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. "It's beautiful," Lily murmured. "Yes," Wade agreed, though he was looking at her, not the sunset. Lily caught his gaze and held it. "Mr. Hayes, Wade, I want to thank you for everything you've done." "Anyone would have done the same." "No," she said firmly, "they wouldn't. The entire wagon train left me behind." "You were the only one who came back." Wade's expression softened. "Lily," he said, the first time he'd used her given name. He was interrupted by shouts from the fort gates. A rider had arrived, covered in dust and blood. People rushed to help him down from his horse. "Indian attack," the man gasped loud enough for them to hear. 20 miles west, wagon train massacred." Lily's hand flew to her mouth. "My God, that could have been our train." Wade stood immediately. "Stay here, I'll find out what happened." He returned 20 minutes later, his expression grim. "It was your train. Apparently they took a northern route after leaving you behind, ran into a war party." "Any survivors?" Lily asked, her voice barely a whisper. Wade shook his head. "None that they found." Lily sat heavily on the bench, overwhelmed by the news. "If you hadn't come back for me." "Don't think about that," Wade said firmly, sitting beside her. "You're safe." She looked up at him, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Because of you." That night Lily couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the people she'd traveled with for weeks: families with children, elderly couples, young men seeking fortune in the West, all gone. And by some twist of fate, she had been spared because of a broken wheel and a cowboy who couldn't leave her behind. In the morning, she found Wade at the blacksmith shop, overseeing the final repairs to her wagon. "I've been thinking," she said without preamble. "I don't want to continue to Oregon, not alone." Wade straightened, studying her face. "What will you do?" "I'm not sure yet. But I know I don't want to join another wagon train. I've had enough of the trail for now." She took a deep breath. "What about those ranches in Colorado Territory you mentioned?" Wade's eyebrows rose in surprise. "You're considering Colorado?" "I'm considering." She hesitated, gathering her courage. I'm considering going wherever you go, Mr. Hayes, if you'll have me as a traveling companion. Wade was silent for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Lily, that's not, people would talk. Let them talk, she said firmly. I've learned that life is too precious and too uncertain to worry about what others think. It's dangerous country, he warned. Everywhere is dangerous. I nearly died on the prairie because of a broken wheel. She stepped closer to him. I feel safe with you, Wade, and I don't want to say goodbye, Wade's eyes softened. I don't want to say goodbye either, he admitted quietly. But I can't ask you to follow me to some rough ranch in territory that's barely settled. You're not asking, I'm offering. The blacksmith cleared his throat loudly, reminding them of his presence. Wagon's ready whenever you are, folks, he announced, pointedly looking elsewhere. Wade nodded his thanks, then turned back to Lily. We should discuss this privately. They walked to a quiet corner of the fort, near the eastern wall where fewer people passed by. Lily, Wade began, in the short time I've known you, I've come to admire your strength and your spirit. But following me to Colorado Territory, it's not the life someone like you should have. Someone like me, she repeated, a hint of challenge in her voice. You're educated, refined, you should be in a proper town, not living rough in mining camps and cattle ranges. And what if that's not what I want? She reached out tentatively, touching his arm. What if what I want is to be with the man who came back for me when no one else would? Wade looked down at her hand on his arm, then back to her face. Lily, are you saying? I'm saying that in the past week, I've come to care for you more than I thought possible. And I believe you care for me too. Her cheeks flushed, but she held his gaze. Am I wrong? Wade shook his head slowly. No, you're not wrong, but caring isn't always enough. Life out here is hard, especially for a woman. I'm stronger than I look, Mr. Hayes, and I'm a fast learner. A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. That you are, Lily took a deep breath. So will you let me come with you? Wade was quiet for a long moment, his internal struggle visible on his face. Finally, he spoke. There's a ranch near Denver that's looking for a foreman. The owner sent word to the fort last month. It's good land, they say, with a proper house. Hope bloomed in Lily's chest. That sounds promising. It would be a difficult journey, 2 weeks, maybe more. I'm not afraid of difficult journeys. Wade's expression softened. No, I don't suppose you are. He hesitated, then reached out to take her hand. Lily, if we do this, I want to do it right. I won't have people thinking I've taken advantage of you. Lily felt her heart skip a beat. What are you saying, Wade? I'm saying. He cleared his throat, suddenly looking more nervous than she'd ever seen him. I'm saying that if you come with me, it should be as my wife, if you'll have me. Lily's eyes widened. Wade Hayes, are you proposing marriage to me? I suppose I am, he said, looking slightly surprised himself. It's not how I imagined it would happen, and I know it's sudden, but yes, Lily interrupted, her face breaking into a radiant smile. Yes, I will marry you. Relief and joy transformed Wade's weathered face. You're sure? You barely know me. I know enough. I know you're honorable and brave and kind. I know you came back for me when no one else would. And I know that when I'm with you, I feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be. She squeezed his hand. The rest we can learn together. Wade brought her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. Together, he agreed. They were married that afternoon by the fort's chaplain with the blacksmith and the innkeeper's wife as witnesses. It was a simple ceremony, but as they spoke their vows, Lily knew she had made the right decision. This man, who had turned back for her when her future seemed most bleak, was now her husband, her partner for whatever lay ahead. That evening, as they sat together outside their room at the inn, watching another spectacular sunset, Wade put his arm around her shoulders. Mrs. Hayes, he said, testing the sound of her new name. Are you having regrets yet? Lily leaned into him, savoring his warmth. Not a single one, Mr. Hayes, though I am wondering what Colorado Territory will be like. Beautiful country, they say. Mountains higher than anything you've ever seen, streams full of fish, good grazing land for cattle. It sounds lovely. And this ranch, do you really think they'll hire you as foreman? Wade nodded. The letter said they need someone with experience handling cattle and men. I've done both. And what about me? What will I do on a ranch? Wade smiled down at her. Well, Mrs. Hayes, I imagine you'll turn that house into a home, maybe start a garden, perhaps even open a small school for the ranch hands' children and any others nearby. Lily's eyes brightened. A school. I could teach again like Father did. I don't see why not. Education is valued everywhere, even in the territories. Lily was quiet for a moment, imagining this future they were building together. It won't be the life I imagined when we left Pennsylvania, she admitted. But I think it might be better. We'll make it good, Wade promised. Together. They left Fort Kearny 3 days later, the wagon now properly repaired and loaded with supplies for their journey. As they headed southwest toward Colorado Territory, Lily couldn't help but think about how differently things had turned out than she'd expected. "Penny for your thoughts," Wade asked as he rode beside the wagon. Lily smiled at him. "I was just thinking about how strange life is. If that wheel hadn't broken, if Father hadn't." She paused, still finding it difficult to speak of her father's death. "If you hadn't turned back, none of this would be happening." "Do you believe in fate, Lily?" She considered the question. "I'm not sure. But I do believe that sometimes the worst moments can lead to the best ones if we're brave enough to keep going." Wade reached across the space between them and took her hand briefly. "Well, I'm grateful for whatever force brought us together, fate or otherwise." "As am I," Lily agreed, her heart full. Their journey to Colorado Territory was not without challenges. They encountered fierce storms, difficult river crossings, and one tense encounter with a small band of Indians who ultimately allowed them to pass unmolested after Wade offered them tobacco and salt. Throughout it all, Lily found herself growing stronger, more confident in her abilities to face whatever the frontier presented. And Wade, who had spent so many years alone, discovered the joy of having someone to share both burdens and triumphs. As they crested a rise one bright morning in late summer, Wade pointed to the horizon. "There," he said, a note of awe in his voice. "The Rockies." Lily gasped at the sight of the mountains, their peaks reaching into the clouds, majestic and imposing. "They're magnificent," she whispered. "That's our future, Lily, just beyond those mountains." 2 days later, they reached the ranch that Wade had spoken of. Whitaker Ranch was larger than Lily had imagined, with a sturdy main house, several outbuildings, and vast pastures where cattle grazed. The owner, a gruff but fair man named Henry Whitaker, hired Wade on the spot after learning of his experience. "Been needing a good foreman," Whitaker said, eyeing Wade appraisingly. "Last one couldn't handle the men. You look like you can." "Yes, sir, I believe I can," Wade replied confidently. Whitaker glanced at Lily. "And your wife, she up for ranch life?" Lily straightened her shoulders. "I am, Mr. Whitaker, and I was wondering if there might be children nearby in need of education. I was trained as a teacher back east." Whitaker's weathered face broke into a surprisingly warm smile. "My daughter's been trying to start a school for the Hands children and some from neighboring homesteads. She'll be pleased to have help from a trained teacher." And so began their new life at Whitaker Ranch. Wade proved himself an excellent foreman, earning the respect of the ranch hands and Whitaker himself. Lily started teaching in a converted storage building, quickly becoming beloved by her small group of students. In the evenings, they would sit on the porch of the small but comfortable cabin that came with Wade's position, watching the sunset paint the mountains in gold and purple. "Are you happy, Lily?" Wade asked one such evening, 6 months after their arrival. Lily, who had been sewing baby clothes for their first child due in the spring, looked up with a smile that answered his question before her words did. "Happier than I ever imagined possible," she said, reaching for his hand. "Are you?" Wade brought her hand to his lips. "I never thought I'd have this, a home, a wife, a child on the way. For years, I just drifted, never staying anywhere long enough to put down roots. And now I can't imagine being anywhere but here with you." He placed his other hand gently on her growing belly. "With both of you." Lily leaned against him, content in the knowledge that the broken wagon wheel that had seemed like such a disaster had actually been the beginning of her true journey, one that had led her to love, to home, and to the family she was building with the cowboy who had turned back to claim her when everyone else had ridden away. "I'm glad you came back for me," she whispered. Wade kissed the top of her head. "Best decision I ever made." As they sat together watching night fall over the mountains, Lily knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she was meant to be. The path had been unexpected and sometimes frightening, but it had led her home to this man, to this place, to this life that was better than any she could have planned for herself. And it had all begun with a broken wheel and a cowboy who couldn't leave her behind.